So, can we start? Yeah? Okay. So I try to say something. So good evening, everyone. We would like to welcome you to tonight's lecture, which we decided to make and organize with Rudolf within our current engagement at this faculty as a guest studio. As you may know, this semester we have been focusing on the topic of reuse, of a topic we consider to be of great importance. And it's how to approach existing architecture within thinking about sustainability through some kind of adaptation and combination of the old and the new. And specifically, we are dealing with the reuse of an abandoned panel housing in Prague. So it's a great honor for us that Jureka Brüggena and Aimée Michelfelder from AFEA Collective accepted our invitations to speak this evening, because they are currently exploring a similar topic in Germany. And you are both part of architecture practice und Jureka Brüggena, which works on designs and initiatives that contribute to regeneration of both urban and natural environment, like from very small object designs to cultural site conversions, let's say. And Jurek has been also recently appointed as a guest professor at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, so congratulations on that. And together with Aimée, you also co-founded this Association for Ecological Architecture, which develops ideas and projects for society, for public and private institutions, pushing for real ecological change. I think we will hear more of this and about similar topics in a minute. So once again, thank you for coming, and we hope you will enjoy this lecture. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, you said, I think, everything. So thank you, everyone, that you came here tonight. And it's even something that, because outside is really beautiful, so yeah, it's really great that you arrived. And after the lecture, we are going to have a beer in Naurale. So I hope you will join us there. So enjoy the lecture.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Magdalena and Rudolf, for inviting us. We accepted it. Of course, we accepted it. And we're looking forward to come to Prague. Yes, I am Aimée, and this is Jurek. And we are from Berlin, and we are very happy to talk about some initiatives from AFEA. And we start with the concept from AFEA.
Yes, so basically we founded our own studios, Aimée and Jureka Brüggena, some years ago, and then we decided to also found an association for ecological architecture, which we called AFEA or AFEA, as we call it in German. And the idea was really not to have a normal office, but rather to focus on initiatives that we will explain in the lecture, but we think there's a really big potential in transformation. And also in the task of architects, especially young architects, to not only do commissions and normal architectural work as we experienced it also when we graduated from university, which is not that long ago, but also to really focus on our own ideas, our own dreams, our own wishes, and also what we think is really important, which is, in our opinion, ecology, social aspects, and sustainability, working with the built environment, with the existing buildings, because that's also much more fun than just designing new houses, at least to us. And so the idea was to have our own offices, but also to have AFEA. And the most important point is this initiative. And then we would also like to develop new concepts of housing, new concepts of living, new concepts of rebuilding, dealing with the existing. And we would like to share them also to others and improve them also. And then we work on construction, so sustainable construction. It's not only about sustainability. Us is much more than just construction, but also construction is an important point of it. So it's about clay and new facades, biodiversity, all these things. And then we would like to do some more research, and of course we would like to work with others, help others, collaborate with others, which is point 5. And when we graduated from university, we didn't learn that much about sustainability. I think that changed now, hopefully. Probably here too, although it's only 4 years ago. So we were pretty shocked when we graduated and when we got to know all these facts and the reality, kind of. So these are facts from Germany, but it's probably pretty similar in the Czech Republic also. So there are 14,000 buildings demolished every year in Germany, and these are only the official numbers, so probably it's even more. And 52% of the total waste of all waste production in Germany is generated by the construction industry, which is also a huge amount. And 70% of global land use is caused by the building sector. So this is also a figure we were really not aware of. And the last one, which is probably the most abstract, but maybe the most important, is that almost 40% of Germany's CO2 emissions are caused by the building sector, which is very similar to the world CO2 emissions, and which shows that we talk a lot about taking a plane, driving by bicycle instead of car, but actually architecture is the really interesting and really important topic to us. And as architects, we were not aware of it, so we were pretty shocked. Yeah. And then we founded our own office, and we thought, okay, let's do a very sustainable competition. That was our first idea.
Yeah, that was basically just after studying or after finishing studying. And in Switzerland, we have the cool opportunity that there are lots of open competitions, especially for schools and public buildings. So we thought we now start practicing architecture very, very sustainable and doing cool sustainable projects. So we took part for a competition for a new primary school in Basel, and we called it Grüner Berg, Green Mountain. And this Green Mountain, as a school, should be the new center of this quartier. And we wanted it to be very open to the quartier, that also the people could come and use it. Maybe I show you where this school would be. Yeah, this would be the school. So everyone could use the school from outside. And there was one special topic with the soil. The soil was contaminated. And one of the tasks were to dig a huge hole and to take away the contaminated earth and put the sports hall in the earth. And we thought, we don't do that. We just leave the earth and put everything on top of the earth. We seal it, and we just expand the landscape onto the school building. And we wanted to do green terraces with kind of terraces all around the building. And this would have been a general floor plan, it's like a small village for the small kids going to school, and they should access the green areas from all the classrooms they were. And we actually just did this, what the jury did not want to have, because we made the facade as big as possible or as long as possible, because we had energy-producing curtains, or we suggested to do energy-producing curtains. So we wanted to have a very long facade. That's why it's so wobbly and not a clear rectangle. And we also had a lot of glass surface, what they also did not want to have. And what we suggested is to put the sports hall, just to the ground floor, and have air ventilation across the building, and use clay, and using the rainwater going down the terraces. And we of course did not succeed at all, but we did a very beautiful model, which was way too huge and took much too much time. But we still think it's a very cool project. It's a little bit naive, you could think, but actually I think it would have been wrong to do something else, and it's still a cool project. And we had a lot of fun using the paper cutter for doing the model stuff.
But also it was very frustrating because, of course, we thought it's really ecological, at least. And also the idea was not only to build ecological, but also for the students to be taught in an ecological way, so always have the relationship to outside. And we did everything differently than you would normally do in Switzerland to build sustainable buildings, because there it's always about efficiency and about a compact volume with maximum surface of the space in relation to a minimum surface of the facade.
Yeah.
And basically we did the complete opposite. So we maximized the footprint of the building to seal the contaminated soil. We had the maximum surface of the facade related to the volume, and we still think it's much more ecological than a normal building, but in all the calculations they probably did, it was probably pretty bad.
And we had to hand in Excel sheets, so it was black on white, so that we did everything wrong. They did not want. So.
Yeah, but conceptually it was a different way. So normally they focus on like having it's an idea of the nature being protected by human interventions. So the building, the idea is that the normal idea is that the building is very efficient and doesn't harm nature. So it's very efficient, very protective. And here the idea was more that the building is actually part of nature. So it's a layered soil. It's not even a building. It's kind of part of the soil stacked on top of each other. And then it can be also generous and luxury. And that was our idea, to be part of it and to contribute to it instead of just trying to protect it. But of course, there was no chance at all to explain this to the jury, and that was frustrating to us. So we really tried to find another way of sharing our ideas. And that doesn't work sometimes, but sometimes it does. And this is probably the most successful story so far. And it's the Aimée house, which is a project we proposed to the city council in a village or a small town. It's not a village, a small town near Berlin. And it's really about these two images. So in Germany, in Eastern Germany, they built a lot of these prefabricated houses everywhere. Basically, all the apartments that were newly built were built in that way. And after the reunification, the single-family house got really, really popular. And now all these apartment buildings are empty, and everyone wishes for a single-family house. And these buildings get demolished, and the new single-family house are getting built. And Stendal is a very special case because they started building a power plant, a nuclear power plant near Stendal. It was the biggest construction site in Germany at that time. There were 7,000 workers working only on the construction site. And Stendal exploded during that time, so they built huge amounts of houses, of these prefabricated blocks, and you can still see it. It's only one part of Stendal. It's Stendal 3, so there's Stendal 1 and 2, and there's Stendal South. And many of these blocks and buildings got already demolished or are still to be demolished. And we were aware of that because I once had to stop by train in Stendal, and then we found this newspaper article. It's German, so I'm not sure. So it says they are lacking building plots in Stendal, and we were very surprised. I was very surprised because I knew that there are thousands of flats empty in Stendal, and that they are not lacking housing space, but they were lacking plots for single-family houses. So this means that still more than 63% of all Germans have the dream of a single-family detached house. So basically they had thousands of empty apartments, but they were lacking space for single-family houses. So what they did is really demolishing the blocks with 80, 100, 120 apartments and building a few single-family houses instead, which we thought it's crazy to do in terms of grey energy, in terms of waste, in terms of all the numbers we showed you in the beginning, and also in terms of the Soviet building culture, in terms of traffic, and in terms of biodiversity. And we thought there must be a solution to do both, to combine both of them, because also there was a very big discussion in Germany that someone of the Green Party somehow proposed to abolish single-family houses. And of course everyone was like, you can't do that, it's the dream of everyone, kind of, you cannot abolish the private house, which is like the holy thing. So we thought, okay, we really have to take that serious, although there are lots of problems combined to it, and we have to find a way how to combine both. And that's a really architectural task, although it could have very nice implications, hopefully. And this is what we proposed to the city council. So it was basically just this drawing with a text, and we said, okay, this is our idea, let's really try to find out if this is possible to implement all the qualities of a single-family house in the existing structure, which would be privacy, individual garden design, or to have a garden, first of all, nice view in the garden, individual access, like have the own entrance, to have generosity, extra space, some double height spaces, and not the same house as the neighbor, basically, or the same apartment. Then living area like guest rooms, children's rooms, and also self-determination, like free choice of how to live, where to live, in which kind of space you would like to live. And then everyone said, okay, that's a nice idea, but how could this look like? And they forwarded us basically to the two big housing cooperatives, which own all the blocks in Stendal. And one of them was very skeptical, and the other one was less skeptical. And they said, okay, it's a nice idea. Let's kind of, we had a walk, and we walked around all the blocks, and they were kind of, okay, these are all our empty blocks. Basically, you can choose the one you would like to start with. And then we kind of did an agreement that we would start on our own cost and first show them that this could be possible. And then we did lots of research, and we learned that these houses are built in that way. So, as you know, probably. But we also learned that they can be built back kind of in the same way. So you cannot take a piece out of the middle, but you can take off pieces from the top. And they are actually doing it in Stendal. Just basically because the lower apartments are more popular because the people are rather old and there are no elevators, so they prefer the lower apartments. So what they do is they reduce 5-story buildings into 2 or even 1-story buildings, which look a bit funny in the end when you know how high the building used to be. So we learned that this would be possible, and then we said, okay, let's try to integrate some vertical streets, how we call it, some extensions of the public street into the building to have the possibility of new private entrances. and to take away a few slabs and pieces of walls to generate terraces and even gardens on top of the lower apartments. So in this matter, we kind of designed a terraced house with 2 vertical streets for these blocks, where you would have the chance to have a private entrance and a garden behind your own house. And then, of course, we would add some insulation, for better energetic quality, and this is how it would look like in the end. And this is the visualization we did to convince the housing association. And they finally commissioned us with the task to design it, and it's going to be built in construction will start end of summer, hopefully. So this is really the idea. We handed in the building permit, and we are now working on the tendering for the main construction works. And this is an image of the vertical street, and this is the way how we propose to combine the flats into individual houses. And to show, so the idea was really to have kind of row houses in the first 2 floors, to reuse the existing entrances, to make them entrances into private houses, and then to use these vertical streets to generate new entrances on the 3rd and 5th floor for new houses or apartments. We call it now houses, and we ask everyone not to call it apartments because it's not anymore. That's at least the aim. And it got very complicated in 3D because we really tried to have also double spaces for every house to have this generosity and to combine them in the best possible way. So we made this model to show it to the client, to explain to him how it works. And we did this housing catalog, like you would really see it in very German, I don't know if the same here, but I think it's very German, these catalogs of single family houses where you could basically like choosing your next travel journey to Mallorca, you could basically choose your private detached single family house. So we really tried to do it the same way to really attract people that would normally buy a single family house. So this was our goal in the end. But in this case, in the existing, with using much less resources. And so in a block with all the same apartments, we kind of proposed to transform into a block with single family house or detached houses, semi-detached houses, all different. And then we did this catalog and we really showed one house after the other so that people could really choose which ones they prefer and which ones suit best to their also to their circumstances. And we have the floor plans for each, and we also did visualization. So there's this double height space where you could look out into the garden. This is one of the row houses in the ground floor. And this is one, I think it's in the 3rd floor probably. So it's really this typical living room space with a huge window. And you could go onto the garden, which looks like a normal garden of a single family house, and maybe even better because you will have a great view from the 3rd floor. And this is, for example, a small studio, and we put the other building in the back because it could really be a landscape of these terraced houses all there, and you could also individualize it further. So you could put a new ceiling in this double height space, add some space if you want to or if you need to, and have some visual connections. And we thought this could be super attractive for people looking for a normal, private, single-family detached house because it hopefully really generates the same qualities. And it also generates much more diversity than there's now. So now it's basically all the same 2-room apartments with mainly elderly people. And this could really attract families, young people, also different kinds of living together in this house with this variety. And we also did some calculations to really prove that it's also better in terms of numbers. So we compared two areas, one with these public blocks and one with the single-family houses. And the big blocks, how this would be when it would be transformed in the same style. And it would be much denser, so there would be 200% more houses on this, in the same area. There would remain much more public space, which is a big quality of the existing city planning now. And there would be much less ground ceiling, and we would even compensate with the green roofs. And as in the other kind of project, we really like to do this playful videos and collages also.
Yeah, but we first showed up with this collage at the city, no, at the owner from the cooperative, and then he asked us to really do real proper visualizations, because they did not get it with this cute collage. So we learned how to visualize images, which we never did before.
Yeah, so we do both now.
Yeah, genau. Yeah, and in the same region as Stendales, there's a very, very pretty place, a small city called Werben. And it's a beautiful landscape, and we cycle a lot. So we found this nice place, also an abandoned space. It was actually the place where the Johanniter knights and monks in the 11th century came to North Germany. So it's a quite meaningful place for the city, but it's very, very demolished. The weather and not taking care of it demolished the whole, also every building. They are in a very bad shape, but also super interesting for us. And we have lots of ideas for it. And it was during Corona when we were interested to find something on the countryside. And this is actually the whole heritage protected Hof area. And it has 5 buildings, and for each buildings we started to create ideas, and then we also started to present the ideas in the city council, because we wanted to convince them that they work with us, or we can work with them, to just give life back to this very special area. And we convinced them kind of with a concept, and we did it in a way that it was published in a book for other small towns. They can get help from this book how to sell houses, but based on a concept. So, yeah,
so basically the plot was owned by the city, and the city is very nice, very cute, and
but
this
very poor.
Big area is still in very bad shape, as you could see. And there were many people who were like proposing ideas, and we worked in a process of 2 years with the city to make an agreement, kind of have a contract in the end, that they would give the plot to us for a very low price based on this concept, and we are obliged to do whatever we agreed on before and in a certain time. And now we kind of have the possibility to design something and to find supporters and also find funding, of course. That's the most important thing here almost, to renovate the projects. But the very nice thing is that we can propose whatever we think is suitable or interesting or nice. And if we don't succeed, or if we don't manage in that period of time, the city has the right to also take it back in the end. So that's still their right.
But the discussions in the council, in the city council, are very hard. Also, not everyone is super happy that the Berlin people come, and it was very tough to convince them. But I think it's also good, because especially here we learned very down to earth what are the needs of the people living there. And one of the very huge wishes from the mayor was to create a home for the elderly people from the place, because they have those very tiny houses which are super cute, but also super difficult when you get old or when you break your leg or whatever. And so we thought for the Langstall it would be nice to give a home for elderly people. And that's kind of the thing we found. So you can see already different historical layers. The red steel structure is not from our period. It has been built when they saved the building. They put the steel structure and the roof on top on it, but they did it in a quite special way, just in front of openings and the Bodenplatte, the slab is much too high. So it also was nice that they did the roof, but also a little bit strange for us. But it's a cool space, and yeah, that's the story of the building. It was once 2 stories, then the roof got demolished, and then the city saved the building and put this structure in it and the roof, and that's how it looks today. And we will do for the heritage lady. We also have lots of talks and emails and phone calls with the heritage lady. And we will do those openings for her again, because we don't really like to rebuild historical elements, but we will do this, we have to do this. And we will take away a little bit from the roof to bring light into the house and also expand the openings. Then we want to do prefabbed wooden elements for a circular construction. And then we put a house into the house. And it can also be deconstructed because it's wooden and circular. It shouldn't be a problem. Yeah.
Maybe the nice thing about this rather strange structure that we just accepted as it is, and that it's a dry space, so it really helps to do this very circular wooden construction, because we don't have to care at all about water, only in the parts where we open the roof at the end. And in all the other space we can just screw it, we don't have to glue anything, and it can be 100% circular. That's really our aim. And by doing a house in the house, we can just leave the existing as it is with the columns in the opening and build an independent structure. And we think that's also super cool, because it really shows these layers, and nobody would actually design to have this column in front of the opening, but now when it is like it is, it's also interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course it's also important to do good floor plans that don't look like an elderly home in all the that we know or we saw in the region. So we wanted to leave the decision to the people how they want to live. So basically they can run around in their studio. There's a barrier-free bathroom and also a barrier-free kitchen and sliding doors, just to leave them the decision if they want to sleep to the garden or if they want to live or have the living room to the courtyard. And so we thought it's actually a quite timeless floor plan. Also, we would use it and other people could use it. Yeah, that's the 2 options they have, basically. And we have a list for interested people, and we have 8 apartments or 8 studios, and we have already double as much interested people to live there. And I think that's a good sign also. If we also talk to the people in the city and we invite them to come, and then we present how far we are with the project, what next steps are. They ask questions and we answer questions, and they tell us stories about their life. They also, some of them worked in this next project, the Verwalterinnenhaus. They were working there in an office, and the stories are really, it's nice to listen to them, and I think it's also an important part of architecture to listen to people. And yeah, do you?
I can do it. Okay. So the house is on the same plot, and it's the Verwalterinnenhaus, which is kind of the representative building. So all the other buildings were used for storing material or keeping sheep or goats or cows. And this is the first building we are renovating right now. It's hopefully, or will very likely be finished in mid of June. And it was the building which was in the best state still. So all the buildings were in a very bad state, but that was the best of all of them. So we started renovating this first, and we proposed to do guest apartments, also to finance the whole courtyard, and we found a private person who would support us to financing it. So that's how we could start. This is interior insulation with wood fiber, and then you can see on the ceiling it's straw, and then it will be plastered with clay, and you will have the heating and the cooling inside, and this is the clay plaster, and this is this contrast between the old and the new, which we very much like in that building. And yeah, one more initiative we did, and it's a very early one, and that's why I would really like to show it, because it's an initiative I did when I was still a student, like you at university. I was in my master's, and this was a place in my hometown. It was a ruin, although it looks like almost finished, but it was a ruin for 4 years. So the city decided to build a thermal bath with a private investor. They split up because they had an argument. The private investor left, the city stopped the building site because they could not afford to finish it, although it was almost finished. There was already water in one of the pools. So it was empty for 4 years because they couldn't find a new investor. And they were still trying. And then after 4 years, there was a citizen initiative that thought, okay, we really need to do something about it. We need kindergarten spaces, we need a primary school, we need pool for the kids to learn swimming, we need a music school. All these social things were very much missing because all the money went into this thermal bath. So they argued for that, but they didn't, in the first place, they didn't really know what to do with the building. So they were wondering to really demolish it, although it was almost finished and very expensive, and to rebuild a social center. And with a friend who I was studying with, or who was also studying, we thought, again, like in the Plattenbau, so it's a very early, but it's the same idea, that there must be a better solution to it, and that it's absurd to demolish a building which is almost finished, although we really didn't like the function and we preferred the other one much more. So we thought that it could be much, much cooler, much more, much cheaper, and much more ecological, and you would be able to do much more also when we would find a way to keep the building and just reuse it for these new functions. So we tried to look at it very carefully, and we found a way how to keep all the circulation, all the bathrooms, all the load-bearing walls, all the separating walls, so almost everything which is of any importance, and to integrate the new functions. So, for example, in 5, here in the lower part, it was the massage rooms, which we proposed to transform them into music school rooms. This was the sauna space where we proposed to do primary school. This was the playing pool, which we proposed to transform into a kindergarten with a playground. This was strange because they had a pool bar, which now exists, and I really don't like it. And we thought it could be a cool skate park for a youth center, much nicer. And then there was a huge recreation area where there would even fit a small sports field. And we would still have one pool for going for swim, which we thought is enough for the small village. And we proposed this to the inhabitants, and many people liked it. We got enough signatures to make it very, to oblige the city council to deal with that. But because they, of course, didn't like it, because it was against their kind of first idea. This was an image of this kindergarten. And they found a legal way how not to be obliged to deal with it. And they built even bigger and extended it even more now with a new private investor. So again, we failed, but the nice thing about it was that it really was a lot of fun, and it contributed to a big discussion in the city, and it was kind of a role model also for many projects we do now. And this was very close to a housing cooperative, and we did the press conference in their spaces, and then afterwards, because they were also very sad that it didn't get realized, they asked us for a contribution to their common house, which was still missing. And this was how this project kind of started. So there were 4 garages, and they were wondering to demolish them also, and then they asked a few officers, including us, although we were very young, because we did this initiative for the thermal bath, and we said, okay, we would really like to do it, but if we do it, we would keep the garage, even though they look very, very bad and are in very bad shape. But we tried to keep everything we could, and we couldn't keep the roof because it was contaminated very much. We couldn't keep the east garage because there was no basement, really no basement, and we could keep the rest. And we rebuilt the eastern garage from the stones we collected. And we added a concrete ring with this only new concrete element to support all the garage, because they were built one after each other and there were no connection, and it was completely unstable also during the construction site. And that was the process. And the nice thing about it was that it's a big housing cooperative, and they don't have much money, so they helped and worked on site wherever they could. We had a big timetable in 2 colors, and all the works that could be done by themselves were done by themselves. So, for example, here, this red line, there was a mark for the contractor to cut, because they couldn't cut, but first they took away all the stones in the middle so that he would be free to cut afterwards. And then there was a very big work of collecting them and cleaning them. And this is one image from the construction, and you can see that we already did the first part of the ring, and we only demolished a part of the wall, because we always had to take care of the building during the construction, because there was always a risk of collapsing because it was so fragile. And this is how it looks now. And it's a communal space for all the residents living there, and they share the space for lunch, for parties, for meetings. And the idea was really to add a new roof and keep the existing. So the new roof has its own grid, and the existing is very irregular. And also here we integrated, we kept the wall to the north as much as we could with all the signs of history. And we also added bird nests, which you can see here, for group birds, and bird nests for single birds. So that's always a different. And this one was inhabited even before we finished the building. So that was really, really cool. And this is how it looks now to the courtyard, and the photovoltaic system on top of the green roof, which is an agri-photovoltaic system. So it can combine both growing plants and producing renewable energy. And these are although it's a very simple space somehow, it's one big room which is distributed in 4 subspaces with according to the old garage. There are many different functions now, and they use it in very, very different way. And I think the very last project, Aimée will show it to you, because it's very up to date, kind of. We just proposed it to one city council and went well so far, but let's see.
Yeah, well, this started during my master thesis, and it's again in Switzerland, because I'm from Switzerland, and I was looking at single-family houses, and I started calling it, and we call it now as AFEA, alles bleibt anders, which is everything stays different. And there's a nice word play, because staying and different and everything. And I learned that in Switzerland we have this Eigenmietwert, it's called. So if you own a house, you save the rent. Because you once bought the house, you don't have to rent a house. And the money you save by owning and not having to pay rent each month is taxed. So this should be a kind of balance between homeowners and tenants. But this amount of money is based on how much surface from your house you actually use. So in the case of elderly people where kids moved out or the partner died, you probably don't use the whole house. So you can let someone come from the municipality, and they check if the rooms are really empty. And in some cases, they were even locked, so you cannot enter the empty rooms. You can also not use it as storage. They have to be empty. And they say, okay, I see you only use 2 stories. and you will pay less money for your home.
And they officially close the room, so also when they leave, you're not allowed to use them anymore at all.
Yeah,
never.
Yeah, and I thought that.
As long as you want to save the taxes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a quite relevant amount of taxes. So especially for old people who don't have an income anymore, it makes a difference. And that was really, I could not believe it when I was asking myself, is this the best solution? And we think, no, it's not. And I think another cool thing about architecture or architects is that we can start suggesting different ways of how we treat certain issues. Not starting to blame people owning houses, not at all, but just finding solutions and other ways. So we started looking at 4 houses, and the colored plans is also because we really have to look at building regulations, what allows us to do and what is possible, what is not possible. And we met all these couples and we're talking to them, and we also realized they all have same fears, same wishes for the future and why they did the house. And they all think of how accessible is the house when they are old. I mean, looking at this staircase, it's quite absurd that an old lady living there goes to the basement for washing her clothes. And they also, all of them talk about that they get lonely when all friends die when they get old. But they also like the freedom they have in the house, which I can understand. But the house is also space for childcare. So in this case, the daughter was bringing their 2 kids 3 times per week to the other lady, and she took care of them. But also the fear when things have to be fixed and to be paid when you are retired and don't have this income anymore. But also all the dreams you have that you can fulfill when you own a space and a garden and a house. So usually the blue houses stand for the conventional process that you buy a single family house and you use it because you have kids, and then the kids move out, and then you don't use the whole house anymore, but you are very familiar with your surrounding, and you know your neighbor, you know where you go shopping and so on. And in a lot of cases, the houses stay empty also because it's cheaper to stay in the house than renting the same kind of apartment with garden is impossible. And we started to suggest why not doing a house cooperative that buys the house from the owners so people can stay. But we also would organize minimal invasive interventions to make the house usable by more people than only the conventional couple living there. And yeah, why not combining single family houses and co-housing? So we did some suggestions in 3 case studies, and this is just where we wanted to make possible that the people living there can host more people, but also have their own private space, because lots of them don't want to feel or hear that other people are in their houses. So we needed an additional access to the house. So we suggested a tower where you can access the upper story via a tower, but also offering the lady living there a winter garden for their plants because she really likes her garden. And we also made a catalog for which other interventions are possible in this house. And also, as I said, looking very good at the building regulations, and did some simple collage that they understand what we want to say. And yeah, just to say, you can have both. The one thing doesn't exclude the other thing. And if you want to use it as a conventional single family house, that's no problem, because the interventions are so minimal that it won't harm the house. And that's another house with a huge roof where we suggested to implement in this cold roof. It has no insulation, an insulated volume that can be used as a studio, and open the roof and visualized it like this. And also in looking very precisely at the floor plan, realizing that all 3 stories can be accessed separately. That's also something that they would have welcomed, the owners of the house. And that was the house from a very old couple. And a very small thing, but important detail is just to bring the washing machine from the basement to the ground floor. And it's a simple move, actually, when you're drawing it, but you have to, or it was important to just make it possible that she has everything on the ground floor. And they have relatives that visit them for some weeks in the year. And we suggested to make in the basement just a simple studio using what was already there. They once built a toilet in the basement, so you just could add a bathtub to provide the bathroom. And then to bring light into the basement, just open the existing buildings to the floor and providing enough sunlight and daylight with sun studies, and convincing them with another collage. And that's how they could use their house, or other families could use the whole house as a single family house. Exactly. Yes, and the nice thing is
that although the interventions are really, really small, the very relevant thing about it is that, especially in Switzerland, but in many other places, when we need more density, houses get demolished and new houses get built because they are denser, they have more apartments. And especially in Switzerland, there's a huge issue because the population is growing, and for example, Zurich is the capital of the Ersatzneubau, which means replacement buildings. So they demolish buildings which are still fine because the new buildings are denser. And we think also this is wasting resources. And in the same country, there's a tax which actually fosters to empty rooms and to keep them empty. So with small interventions, architectural interventions, it could be made possible that these spaces could be used, and we would not even be, there would be no need or less need to build new structures. So it's kind of activating the unused or the unseen or the invisible space that exists. And this is something which could be applied to many countries which have the same issue. And we proposed this and could then be transformed into a communal housing cooperative. So all the single-family house owners could be still owners of the cooperative. They would share their property and they would give it into that cooperative, and this cooperative would take care of, kind of match the residents and also take care of these small interventions and take care of the houses, and would take also care of efficient energy efficient renovation, so that the residents would not have any problems anymore. They could live in their house for free and would not need to care of anything. Mm-hmm. And the cooperative would then create this new space kind of in the existing. And we proposed this to a city in the east of Switzerland, because the city basically grew because of a huge company. So in the 60s, also when the 60s, 70s, when the most of these single-family houses were built, this city grew rapidly, and it's called Uzwil. And we also sent them a proposal to start kind of a trial phase there, because they have lots of this unseen, invisible space in single-family houses. And we proposed to them that we will live there for 10 days and offer kind of our service to 7 residents and owners of single-family houses to show them how their life would change when they would join this cooperative, and how the cooperative would basically change their house and how they would profit, and new owners in the house would profit and how this would be a good thing in the end, because I think it's still, the single family house is a very hard topic and a very private thing also. And so far it looks good that the city will support us staying there for a while and doing this pilot phase, kind of, and then we could start.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for such a nice talk about your work. It was super interesting that you actually didn't succeed in the classical competition, but you always succeeded when it came from your own initiative with your own ideas to the municipality or cooperative. So, like, how do you feel about it? Like, do you think it's gonna be maybe the way of your work, like your approach to the architecture?
Yeah, I think we can choose how we want to work, and I think I chose it, or also you chose it for you, and it's something that really comes from inside, and I know I can make a difference in choosing this way of work instead of other ways. So.
Yeah, and there are also projects that didn't work. So we of course there are, but even they are super interesting to do. Lots of fun also. I mean, not everything we do, but in general the project is interesting. And even there, it at least it starts a discussion, like in Werder, for example. And this is really cool compared to a normal competition also. And I think it could really be a way. Maybe it's not. I mean, also we have clients and we do some other projects too, but we really try to focus on the initiatives. And also the studio I started in Karlsruhe, this is really about starting initiatives with the students. So really trying to do this in this way.
Perfect.
Do you have any questions?
Hi, thank you for the lecture. I really like your projects, but I have a question or two. First, how do you make living? And or maybe that would be for a long time, but I like that you come up, or in many times it was your initiative, and it seemed that in some projects you could also work as a kind of developer. And for example, in the case of this church area, I understood that you got some contract from the municipality. And I was wondering if there was supposed to be some tender process or some competition that you were the one who actually got to this property and you can handle it. And I understood that there is another stakeholder giving you finances and then you might have get some profit out of it, or how does it actually work when you are working on such projects? Thank you.
Yeah, so the most difficult thing is always the first phase, because this is always on our own cost. And sometimes it needs more work, sometimes less. And but it's the same in a competition. You also have to pay the competition first. And when you're lucky, you get the contract and the first prize. And when you're not, then you have to pay it by yourself. And all the projects we showed are paid in the end. So also the housing project, the Einfamilienhaus, we made a contract with the housing cooperative that they pay not only the amount of work we did after signing the contract, but also in the contract it says that they also have to pay the work we did so far to develop the project. So of course we really need to take care of I mean, we need to live off something, so we really need to take care of getting paid also for the initiatives we do. And in this case in Stendal, it's this housing cooperative that kind of, we initiate the project, but then they contracted as us as architects, basically. So now they are the clients, kind of, but they are kind of, they commissioned us with our project. So it's a bit different, but the contract is more or less a usual contract for architectural service. Although, of course, we always push them, ask for new funding and everything, because we have a very big interest in the project to start. And yeah, and you realized that correctly, the Komturei Verben project, this is really a kind of development project in a good way, hopefully. And there, the price was very little because of this concept, and there was no other party involved. Basically, we initiated the concept phase, kind of. So we proposed it to the city, and the city was very skeptical, so we proposed it again and again, and this process, in the end, was kind of a concept phase, but it was not meant to be a concept phase in the beginning. So we persuaded them, and then in the end they said, okay, we are willing to give it to you for rather low price, but bound to these conditions. And then it's indeed very much about Excel sheets, also calculations, funding, applying for funding, very bureaucratic. And now, and I asked for a loan, and also a colleague was involved, David Gößler. He had some private money also, but it was not that much. We could just afford buying the plot from the city. That was basically everything we had to do in the first place. And then we applied for funding, and when we got the approval for the funding, we were kind of able to ask for other people, for example, this private person, to buy this one house, and also she commissioned us with the architectural service, kind of. And now, when the house is finished, we will also take care of its function, kind of. So we will take care of the guest apartments. We will rent it back from her. So this is kind of the deal. So it's, again, a pretty complex contract we made with her. But in the end, we are kind of in charge of everything, but we also have the responsibility. So when it doesn't work, in the end, how we designed it, then it's our responsibility, because we have to pay the rent to her. Only we couldn't afford to renovate it, because we didn't have the capital, of course. So that was how she helped us also in that way. And the second project, the Langstall, that is getting more complex even. So there's a Stiftung, a non-profit organization that will, from the region, that will take care of the elderly living housing. And since they are also not able to finance a project because it's still expensive and big, we will now try, or the idea is now to find private investors that will buy a flat, and that they will be obliged to rent it to this non-governmental organization for a fixed rent, so that they can then rent it as elderly living. And this will be fixed for a certain amount of time, probably 15 years. And in that way, they have a very safe but very low return on invest, and a social background, like they can do something positive, which is still an argument, hopefully, for some people, and they can save taxes, which there's a special rule in Germany. When you renovate old houses, you can save taxes. So it's really also an economical impact for them. And that's how and this is something we set up, and we really have to take care to start the renovation.
Any other questions?
Hello, thank you for the lecture. It was amazing. I have a question about convincing the clients. How do you convince the clients? And even if you have to convince them, maybe they are all interested in sustainability and the topics you've talked about. But is there any tactics you have on this side? Thank you.
Yeah, I think in the case of Werben, this heritage protected area, that was really about making realistic suggestions, so no fancy architecture stuff, not at all, because the questions they asked us is, will you live there? Will your kids, we don't have kids, will your kids go to school and kindergarten there? And will you have your office there for having taxes, income for the city? And that was strange in the first moment, but it taught us that we really have to be realistic in what we talk about. And as soon as you start dreaming in front of the city council, in this case, you would have lost and have even more critical people not believing in you. Yeah, but it's also okay, because I don't want to do anything else than be real and talk to people and being present and personal. I think that's a good thing anyway.
And also taking very serious what the wishes are of also the parties you might not like. I think that's a good advice I could give you, but it's very abstract still. But for example, in Stendal, we at the same time we develop a project which shows that single-family houses are not a good thing, basically. And so we knew it's something negative in a way, but still it's the dream of a great majority. So we never criticized a single-family house. Instead, we said, okay, it is how it is, and we have to find a better solution to it. And I think that's also in Stendal, also in Germany in general, the far-right parties are getting stronger and stronger. And even especially in the countryside, it's a very big issue. And I was afraid when we presented in the city council that we look like the green left from Berlin, kind of, because we have this ecological project. And we didn't talk that much about ecology and renewable energies and gray energy. We rather talked about like fulfilling the wishes of having a single family house, but in an innovative way to attract other people also to the city. And in that way, we got the big majority of the city council and even this rather right parties, which I didn't expect, support the project in the end. So it's really about, we really care about these things, but it's not something you always have to, like there are also other topics which are really important, and even if you might not like them, it's important to embrace them, kind of.
Yeah, and also I think in terms of your graphic design, it is about the question of convincing the client. I think your all the images and axonometries are extremely clear and can be also good in communicating to the non-architectural audience what is it about. So I think your analysis is many times very complex, but the solution is very like simple and banal in a way, but very well like analyzed, let's say.
Yeah, it's also when you can say in the end, look, it's totally absurd and doesn't make any sense to demolish 80 apartments and build 8 new single-family houses on the same plot. This should be logical to everyone, but they are still doing it. And then the problem is when you come from the outside and tell them, look, this is stupid what you do, then of course they will say, whoa, whoa, whoa. And there are certain reasons why they do it, and they are very logical also. It's not stupid, and it's really it really depends on the way to work with them instead of accusing them, although, of course, from the outside, that doesn't make any sense. And then in the end, if everyone sees the potential of it, then that's the best thing.
Hello, I was inspired by your panel house project, and I was wondering what is happening with the removed panels. Have you thought about like how to reuse even these panels?
Yes, I didn't even say it. We do reuse them. So the slabs that we have a big problem of higher loads because these prefabricated houses, they are reduced to the maximum. So every millimeter of concrete is needed for the forces that are already there. So there are no reserves in the structure at all. And we add new insulation, earth, even trees. So we have much higher loads. And of course, we need to strengthen the structure. And then we looked for solutions how to do it. And the best way was actually to double the slabs. So we use the slabs from the top and put them on top of the other. So we have a double layer of concrete slab from the existing. And in that way, we could almost reuse all or most of the slabs in the house. And the walls are not yet reused in the project, but we applied for funding project for researching in how to use them in new construction, which could be kind of a community house in the remaining public space. There are already some examples how to use this. So for now, we already prepared the tendering for it, and we said just store them on site because we now have enough space there, and they will just be kept there, and then we will hopefully get the funds to design something and be paid for it also to be able to do it.
Any other questions? Yeah, I also like the thing about the panels that that normally people think that these panel houses are not very flexible, but in terms of somehow rearranging them and put panels out, it's not so difficult as if it would be monolithic slab, let's say. So in this way, it's a kind of, I think, not so like known that it is maybe quite easy, or you can say from your experience about that.
Yeah, I didn't show it in detail, but the grid is 6 by 6 meters, and we did not remove any load-bearing walls in the spaces we still use, and we did not add any load-bearing walls in the spaces we still use. So we keep all the existing structure, and we even reuse all the stairs. So all the staircase, which used to be public to access the apartments, are now transferred to internal staircase for these houses, which have 2 levels. So the previously public staircases are now private staircases inside the houses, but they're the same space and they are just reused. And the only stairs we add are the stairs for the vertical street. And in that way, it looks very complicated, this model, but it is totally simple. The only, I mean, it's geometrically complicated, but in terms of structure, it's really simple. So we only remove the non-load-bearing walls, which are 4 centimeters thick in these buildings, so it's not even that much material, and only add a few openings. That's the only thing we do. And we add something in the staircase to strengthen the stiffness of the building for the horizontal forces. But that's something we had to do, which is alongside a load-bearing wall. So it's also very little intervention. So basically, it's all based on the grid. And it was a play inside this grid with combining the apartments. And that's why it's also the biggest challenge on if it will get realized or was the financing it, because the housing cooperative, it's a cooperative, so it will be for rent. That's the aim, and they want to make it affordable. So the aim is to have it below 10 euros per square meter rent, and in that case, it really has to be a affordable construction also. And the cool thing about it is that this building type is the most built building type in Eastern Germany completely. So the concept could be applied to everywhere in Germany, even to East Europe, because the same building type was also built in Eastern Europe, based in the whole Soviet region. So building by building, we could make it even more affordable and could optimize it even more, and could be kind of a prototype for all the prefabricated building which are going to be demolished and replaced by single-family houses. And in Stendal, they already stopped demolishing 3 of these big blocks because they now see the potential in transforming them into this Einfamilienhaus house. And they already had fundings, because it's very interesting, in Eastern Germany there are funds to support Eastern Germany compared to West Germany, because it used to be separated and there are still some structural problems. And these funds, with these funds, the owners of these big blocks are getting funded for demolishing it completely, because they are empty in many places and they're very expensive to maintain. And in order to stop problems of empty buildings, the state decided to fund demolishing them. And now they already had fundings for demolishing 2 blocks, and they stopped it, and they transferred the funds to our house so that we can do this terraced structure, which is also kind of demolishing. And in that way, we can now start this summer. This is why we can start so early.
Wow, that's something. That impact is really great. Okay, maybe last question. Okay, thank you very much for the lecture. It was really inspiring and it was really good. And thank you for coming. And I hope you will join us for a beer now.
Yes. Thanks for the invitation and the questions.
Tak tam zavoláme, jenom aby věděli, že přijdeme.
Jo.